A couple weeks ago, we got the announcement that StarCraft was coming to the tabletop in the form of a miniatures game in early 2026. At that time though, all we had were basically digital renders of some of the main characters and what their miniatures will probably look like. But now we have a few images of some actual miniatures, and they're not exactly the highest quality of images, but they're the best we got right now. Archon Studios runs AMAs live on YouTube where fans of their games can ask them questions about what's going on, and in a recent one, well, someone asked, when can we see StarCraft miniatures? And the answer was right then and there. Of course, these are some screenshots from that YouTube video of them holding miniatures up to a webcam, but you know, let's take a look. So the first one here is obviously a Terran Marine with a pistol. I'm not entirely sure what this other thing is over here. I mean, my random wild guess is that it's some sort of Xel'Naga artifact, but I'm not sure why that would apply to a tabletop miniatures game, but hey. So next up, we've got another Terran Marine. It's going to be a bit of a reoccurring theme here. But this guy's holding your Gauss rifle, as well as the combat shield upgrade over there on his other arm. Then we've got your normal Terran Marine, no combat shield upgrade, just holding the standard Gauss rifle. And finally, the last miniature we got was from the Zerg, and it's a little Zergling. And yes, Zerglings are that big. They're a lot bigger than you kind of imagine they would be in the game. And no, you don't want to be attacked by them because they're big and vicious. At this point, those miniatures we saw there are the only ones that have actually been approved by Blizzard, and that's why they can show them off. But as for what's going to be in the game, we've gotten some more information about that. And the largest miniature we know of so far is going to be the Ultralisk. At least the largest miniature that's, quote, confirmed is going to be the Ultralisk. Of course, that is this guy right here. He's just like a giant version of the Zergling, but a heavily armored, and likes to give hugs that just kill lots of people in a single swipe. As for how big the miniature is going to be, well, it's a bit of an unknown because if you look at the lore behind this guy, he's somewhere between 15 and 60 feet tall, depending on which source you're looking at. So, trying to predict how big his tabletop miniature is going to be, well, we'll find out when we actually get to see it. As for some of the other larger miniatures in this game, they did say they want to have the Terran Siege Tank, which is their combination battle tank that morphs into a fixed emplacement artillery unit. So that's going to be awesome to see. It's probably going to be essentially two miniatures, one in tank mode, one in siege mode like you see right here. And one final massive unit that is in StarCraft 2 is the Protoss Colossus. Now, when the original AMA All About the StarCraft game started, this guy was not going to be in the game, but by the time they got to the end of the stream, they said, well, maybe we'll add him into the game. So maybe, just maybe, we'll see this massive killer robot in the Tabletop Miniatures game, but it's kind of a bit hazy right now. As for the products that are going to be available when the pre-order starts at the end of this year, you're going to get a starter set, which features the Terran versus the Zerg, which is kind of your classic matchup when it comes to StarCraft. And then there's going to be one more, essentially a one-player starter box for the Protoss. Additional units are going to be available for purchase, but exactly how they're going to be packaged is yet to be determined. And when I say pre-order at the end of the year, it's going to be a pre-order through your local game store. This is not going to be a crowd-funded project, which is awesome. The goal is to have this available sometime early mid-2026. Now there are a few more things we can talk about the miniatures because they do like to show off some of the cool technology they have over there that's unique to their miniature and terrain line. And we'll start with this guy right here. This giant guy right here is named Baylor. He is part of their Dungeons and Lasers miniature lines, which is sort of like your role-playing themed kind of products. And what he's got, if we go to the very end of the product images, is they can go ahead and cast these translucent plastic miniature parts. Therefore, you get these really cool, different, unique shapes and have ways of kind of creating fire or energy for some of their miniatures. And if your brain went in this direction, you're not the only person thinking that. Of course, this is the Archon from StarCraft, and it's essentially a giant disembodied torso and arms floating on top of a ball of energy. Which, of course, when you start thinking how cool it would be to see this ball of energy cast in that translucent, maybe multicolored translucent plastic, it would be a really neat way to accomplish this particular miniature, as well as some other guys, especially from the Protoss line. Even on the basic level, when you have the Zealots with their side blades, those are just glowing energy swords that would also look really cool with this technology. If you want miniatures right now and you have access to an FFF 3D printer, I've got a solution for you in the form of my line of Fractured Colony gaming miniatures. This guy right here is the Griffin Light Hover Tank for the Coordinator Alliance, and I got a quick preview for the upcoming Kickstarter later this summer that's kind of similar to this guy. And this thing right here, which is maybe about half designed, is the new Manticore Infantry Fighting Vehicle. It's kind of a hover vehicle similar to the Griffin, and if I slide around the other side, you can see why it's an IFV, because you got a couple battle armor that can hide inside this thing. Now that project I will be launching a little bit later this year, but you can check the Griffin out right now at fracturedcolony.com. Alright, let's get back to the video. And one other cool technology they like to talk about is this thing they have called PrismaCast. We have an example of it here from their Dungeons and Lasers set. And this product you're looking at, as you see it here, is how you get the product. This is not like a hand-painted version of an unpainted miniature kit. Now the exact details of how the PrismaCast system works are kind of being held in secret, but from what I can tell, it seems to be some sort of UV cured resin printing process where a machine can print these colors on the unassembled, still on the sprue terrain pieces, and then essentially it comes over and cures the resin, and it can kind of put multiple layers on like that. The plan is that some of the StarCraft terrain will have this technology applied, and the main limitation is because it is essentially like an inkjet printer dropping off UV resin, as well it only works on flat terrain pieces and not a whole lot on 3D, shaped miniatures at this time. So I've got some notes right here in front of me for some of the comments they made on the actual gameplay. We don't have a lot of details, but we can kind of look at it this way. Here's a screenshot from a pro match featuring Rainer over here, who is one of the world champions of StarCraft. And eventually, for the most part, most StarCraft games end up in some massive mega battle like this. And the tabletop game is essentially going to be taking a look at a tiny part of this battle. Like you might zoom in like on this little square over here, or maybe right over here. And that's kind of like what you're going to be playing while a much larger fight goes on around you. Archon Studios described the game as a combat patrol scale. Let me get that right. I've only done this about 10 times. With 20 to 40 miniatures per side. I'm thinking 20 is more like the Protoss, 40 is probably more like the Zerg. And there's going to be some sort of reinforcement mechanic from what they were talking about. So if you go back to the picture of this battle, essentially the idea is you're fighting this little area right here, but more guys are coming in from here or maybe from the backfield, wherever it is, to join the fight. So it's going to be kind of a continuous rolling thing. I'm kind of imagining something similar to Warcaster Neo Mechanica, but they did not explicitly say that. On the mechanics side of things, all we got was very basic stuff, like there's going to be a card-driven initiative system, no details given, take it as you want. And there are going to be custom dice, and they said they're using custom dice because this is going to allow them to kind of factor in these sort of advantages, disadvantage system that StarCraft naturally has. When it comes to a StarCraft battle kind of like this, there's a whole bunch of little mini paper, rock, scissors games going on where certain units kill certain units faster because of vulnerabilities and weaknesses, and Archon Studios plans to capture the feel of this aspect of the game using these custom dice. We have not seen these dice, so who knows what they're going to look like. It's just going by the little bit of information we have that they've mentioned. And then finally, when it comes to more of a competitive gameplay scene, they're targeting kind of 2 hours for your standard competitive game. And they're going to have some sort of system of organized play, but once again, there's no details given. That's the reoccurring theme at this point because the game is still relatively early on in development. For those of you who are fans of the co-op mode of StarCraft 2, they are going to have sub-factions. So it's not just going to be Protoss, Terran, and Zerg. It's going to be the little miniature factions that live underneath all of those, including a lot of the units that are unique and custom to the co-op mode are going to be available at some point for this game. Alright, well thank you guys all for watching. I'm Jason, the creator of the Tabletop Battlefield. I'm looking forward to seeing StarCraft because I'm a big fan of the video game franchise and I would love to see this game come to the tabletop, especially if it's going to have some sort of reinforcement mechanic like Warcaster Neo Mechanica, because frankly I think that game may have been one of the best tabletop miniatures games in the last 20 years or so. That's just my opinion. Clearly I was in the minority there, but that's my opinion. Anyway, if you want to check out some of the vehicles from my 3D printable gaming miniatures line, that's over at fracturedcolony.com. And with that, I'll see you guys all next time.